My story happened in 2019 when I was covering the Manila Biennale, which was located in the walled city of Intramuros in Manila. A photographer and I were looking at the exhibits in Fort Santiago, which was a Spanish fort. And we were getting ready to leave the fort when the photographer wanted me to pose by the exit of Fort Santiago. So the photographer took a few pictures and then told me to stand beside them and look at the camera while they took a few more of just the empty space. At first, I could see a normal photograph of the exit of the fort. And then afterwards, the next photo was filled with orbs, balls of light littering the whole photograph. I'd always thought orbs were dust coming from light, or maybe an unclean lens, a dirty lens. But to see that happen in front of me made me believe that maybe there is something to this after all. Later on, the photographer showed me the photo they had taken of me. And again, there's one photo of me just normal standing beside the exit. And then a second photo of me surrounded by orbs. So I really don't know what went on, but now I know that there are some things in this world that we cannot explain.
There was a last minute assignment I once had overseas that led to me staying overnight at this dingy hotel. So just outside the window of this hotel room I was staying at was a cemetery, and in front of the hotel across the road was a mortuary that I was supposed to go to the next morning. It was quite the experience because apparently the only guests at the place were the driver and myself, but there were a lot of sounds in the middle of the night. The driver slept through all of it, but I could hear the door slamming, weird buzzing noises coming from the corridor, and the lights at the corridor all flickered all the time. And then when I was taking a bath that night and the power had suddenly cut, and the whole place was just pitch black. And then when the power came back on, after a minute I realized that the mirror was all foggy except for one part on the side that looked like someone had taken a cloth and just wiped downwards. The next morning I tried talking to the driver about it, but he just muttered something about it being best not to talk about it. Thankfully it was only one night, so yeah, I would totally do it again, just for the experience.
The incident is the Sri Maha Mariamman Temple riot, which took place near USJ 25 Subang Jaya around November 26 to November 27, 2018. It's a 2-day riot, stemmed from a misunderstanding between the temple management and the property developer over land ownership issue. This incident resulted in widespread property damages and also the death of a fireman. The issue was blown out of proportion into a racial issue when it was not, and you have two ethnic groups pitting themselves against each other. On that day we had to get photos of the surrounding area, and the best place was the temple grounds, right through the protesters. I had a photographer with me, and we had to squeeze through that 10,000s of protesters who were visibly agitated, and I think the slightest of provocation could have resulted in our injuries. At one point in time, we had a protester stop us in our track and ask us what we were doing, before sort of like threatening us to leave before things turned ugly. So we felt very uneasy, and honestly we were fearful of any unprovoked attacks. Thankfully, we managed to get what we needed, and we left the protesters and head towards the police line. But I think several hours after that, a second riot would take place, where the 10,000 protesters, they marched, I think about a kilometer away to the developer's office, and they trashed the place. I think one of my photographers was injured during the commotion. He had a stone thrown at his head. It was a test of resolve, I suppose. I mean, we all knew the risks when we signed up, but to meet them head on, can be terrifying, to say the least.